with us. And Kirk, you probably heard during the news the Speaker of the House, Boehner, was chastising the Obamanator.
Oh, yeah.
And he referred to the takeover of Ramadi not as meaningful in that it was the second largest city in the largest province of Iraq. He didn't look at it as, this is humanitarian crisis with the Iraqi army of Shias pointing their guns at the face of the refugees while the Islamic State uses American guns and shoots at the rear of the refugees. Now, he said that it puts ISIL within 60 miles of Baghdad. That's all he cared about. Territory turf. So I decided I would just look up Levant. You know what Levant means, actually? It's an Arabic word, but you know what Levant means, what the definition of Levant is?
No.
It's to run away, leaving an unpaid debt.
Oh.
To run away, leaving an unpaid debt. Would define the U.S. government, wouldn't it? Define the U.S. military.
Well, we sure know a lot about debt.
Yeah, we really do. And we know a lot about running away.
Pull out. Yeah, we know
look what we did in Korea. Look what we did in Vietnam. Look what we did in Iraq. Look what we're doing in Afghanistan. We are really good at that, running away, leaving a monumental debt. That's what Levant means.
Wait.
And by the way, they're calling it ISIL, which would be the Islamic State in Syria and the Levant. Mm-hmm. Do you know that, and of course they refer to themselves, did for a while, as the Islamic State in Syria and Iraq. So it was, but if it's going to be ISIL, then you got a problem with that. Because ISIL would be Syria and the Levant. The Levant excludes Iraq. Which is where they are right now, is in Iraq. Yeah, the Levant is Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, and parts of Jordan. So it's Jordan, Israel, Lebanon, and Syria, but it excludes Iraq.
Now, if they take over Baghdad, why should we care?
Why would we care? I mean, because there are, 10,000 American troops and personnel there, a little more than 10,000, because I think we have 7,000 or 8,000 American troops there and 5,000 American civilian personnel. They call themselves civilian. They're State Department. They're CIA and the like, NSA. Yeah, I mean, other than you're going to lose another 10,000 Americans, why would we care?
Well, I mean, you can pull them out like they did in Vietnam with the last man with helicopters.
Oh, yeah, because actually Levant means to run away, leaving an unpaid debt. So why not? Yeah, oh yeah, it's just great, yeah.
But, okay, so the Sunnis take over, they take over Baghdad.
Okay.
And
they're not going to do that, by the way. They're not going to do that. You know why they're not going to do that? I mean, they will. I would assume they're going to attack Baghdad, but they have no interest as the Islamic State trying to occupy Baghdad.
Well, I think that would entrench them in a war with Iran because they are Shias there now. So that would make
the majority of Baghdad is Shia, and therefore, they can take over Mosul, they can take over much of Syria, they can take over Ramadi and Fallujah, because the preponderance of people in those areas, in those towns, those cities, are Sunni Muslims. So the Sunnis may not love the Sunni Islamic State, although most probably do, but they despise the treatment they received at the hands of the Shia militia. And so to be liberated from the atrocities the Shia militia that was armed by America was perpetrating on them is such a favorable set of circumstances. The Sunnis were delighted to have the Islamic State force out the Shia. But in Baghdad, it's mostly Shia. And so the cost to the Islamic State would be catastrophic to try to occupy it. I see them attacking it, but only for the purpose of capturing more weapons. for the purpose of continuing to weaken opposition to them. But they're not going to occupy it. It's what I see ultimately happening is that there's going to be a sharp division between the Sunnis on one side of that divide, going through western Iraq into almost all of Syria, up into parts of Lebanon, which is where this war will be fought, and down into Jordan. And, ultimately it's going to spread all across that region, even into northern Saudi Arabia and into southern Turkey. All of those places would be viewed favorably by Sunni Muslims.
Yeah,
and they'll get the nincompoops that masquerade as Palestinians in the refugee camps in Syria and particularly in Jordan and also in Lebanon to side with them.
Sure. Well, this is their chance to attack Israel, so that's where it's headed.
Yeah, and then ultimately, who are they going to attack? That's why the Great Jihad is calling so many Sunni Muslims from America and from Europe and from Australia, around the world, into the auspices, the control of, the influence of the Islamic State. So it is boy, talk about a mess. So anyway, yeah, Levant means to run away, leaving a huge debt behind. Yahowah's deal is he does want us to walk away. He didn't ask us to run away, though.
No.
He asked us to walk away from our country. He wants us to walk away and disassociate from our country for these very reasons. Our country is evil. Our country's policies are counterproductive. What human institutions do, whether they be religious or political or economic, is they fleece people, they deceive people, they control people, they manipulate people, they deprive people of information and then of the ability to express free will in a thoughtful way. And so Yahowah asked us to walk away from it. And I think the pace of that is suitable because I'm still walking. And, the ability to peel back the indoctrination of Christianity and of political correctness and of socialist secular humanism, it's a long ordeal. You just take one step at a time.
Yeah, that was going to be my question to you. Is there any possible scenario whereby the Western world, and this is a rhetorical question, I mean, I know what the answer is before I ask it, but is there any possible scenario that you could see whereby the Western world would recognize Islam as it really is and isolate it and cut off ties with it?
I ask you this: is there any chance that the Western world is going to recognize that Pauline Christianity is a complete fraud?
That was my question number 2. Now you got ahead of me. I have to send you a script if you're going to do it like this.
I'll do it the first one. No, I think the likelihood is zero because the dominant influence in the media and in politics and in militarism and patriotism in the West, being politically correct, has chosen to embrace Islam. Even though Islam represents everything that they oppose, they have chosen nonetheless to be complete hypocrites and to embrace Islam, and therefore those who are politically correct, like every elected politician, like everyone in the media, like most religious leaders, will continue to speak favorably of Islam. And I think the number of people who are going to be willing to expose and condemn the religion based upon its Sunnah, based upon its Hadith, based upon its Quran, based upon its collective actions over the past 1,400 years, its criminal beginnings, is you can count on a couple of handfuls. So absolutely not.
See, if anyone were to listen to you and IQ on a Friday for 1 hour, they should be so disturbed in their being that it would be they couldn't be the same after just one show.
Yeah, that's what
they did their research. They'll find exactly what you said and what IQ says is true.
Yeah.
And then how do you deal with that?
Then how do you deal with it?
Yeah.
Right.
Same.
Once you're exposed to the evidence, how do you deal with it? For those who are listening, go to prophetofdoom.net. It's the most comprehensive, the best documented, the most chronological, the most complete and contextual presentation of the Quran ever written, because it sets the Quran into the context of Muhammad's life as it is known through the Sunnah, which is the collection of hadith. And so it uses the hadith to reorder the Quran chronologically and to set it into the context of Muhammad's life. And as such, context provides the best means to understand the text of the Quran itself. And when you do that, the conclusions are obvious. Islam was created as a criminal enterprise. Islam is a declaration of war on all humankind. The best Muslims are all jihadists. It's impossible to be a Muslim and not engaged in jihad. That's just the facts. They're not opinions. It's the only informed and rational conclusion that can be made from the evidence.
And then you marry that with the argument against Paul, which is almost identical.
The argument against Paul is extraordinarily similar. Muhammad starts off as just running his mouth, making all sorts of false accusations. He's very antagonistic. I mean, he is Paul's foul-mouthed. He is really condemning and condemning of the things that are the most revered by Yahowah. And he's a bully. And so in that regard, that's how Muhammad begins. That's how Paul ends. Paul begins by being a savage, by his own admission, by being a murderer, and by being sadistic, being overtly violent. Muhammad ends that way. So their lives are kind of reversed in the sense of one began with foul words and ends with foul behavior. The other one begins with foul behavior and ends with foul words. But their inspiration is the same. Both admit that they're demon-possessed. And the message that they convey is quite similar.
And that's very obvious if you read it in good translation from the Greek. It's very obvious.
Yeah, it is.
Paul is exactly what you're claiming he is, and the question of Paul. And once again, is anybody any context where they would recognize, the Western world would recognize that?
Well, thus far, of the many thousands of people who have read Question Paul, not a single person has read the book and remained a Christian. It's impossible. We'll be back after a moment. Welcome back. Since you've asked me these two questions, and the answer is yes and no, that 100% of those who are open-minded, who are persuaded by evidence and reason, who will go where the truth leads and will abandon lies that they have been indoctrinated with prior to experiencing evidence and reason. 100% of those people will come to know the truth about Islam if they want to. Will come to know the truth about Christianity, Pauline Christianity, if they want to. And 100% of those who are not willing to invest the time, who are not open-minded, who have been indoctrinated and don't seem to care about with political correctness, are never going to embrace the truth. And that's the vast preponderance of people. So I have a question for you.
Sure.
Kirk?
Yes, sir.
Do you think a meaningful number of people in the West will ever come to understand the indoctrinative nature, the purpose of and consequence of political correctness, social or secular humanism and its agenda in academia and in politics and the media?
Absolutely not.
I think it's so pervasive.
So what the schools would do it, they still would.
Yeah. Well, because the schools are the shrines. They're the temples.
Exactly.
Yeah, the schools are the shrines and the temples of man's religion.
And
the media is its great prophets is the media.
Yeah.
And its legislators are politicians.
Yeah.
So no, it's so pervasive in our society, and it starts so young that no, I don't think that you will find one even in 1,000 people who are able to avoid the consequence of political correctness, which is to render them incapable of being moral, incapable of exercising good judgment. That's the purpose of it. It renders you incapable, completely unwilling. It's the same. It has the same consequence that religion has. A religious person is incapable of being moral and incapable of exercising good judgment. So the answer to those three is those who, with an open mind, use evidence and reason to explore the original birth of political correctness, which was with Weishaupt. Adam Weishaupt, back at the time America was being conceived, and they look at what he wrote and how he spread his doctrine as an alternative religion. It's impossible to deny its effect today. Now, the next question I would ask you then, since you've got two, I'm going to take two.
Okay.
Do you think there will ever be a significant number of people who become observant of the Torah and come to know Yahowah and understand the terms and conditions of his covenant?
Absolutely not.
Yeah. And why not?
Well, first of all, you can, if you didn't know the answer, you could read the answer. We're told how few will actually do it. It would
Yahweh says in the second statement that yet and stone, thousands will receive his mercy by observing the terms and conditions of the covenant. And if thousands will receive his mercy by observing the terms and conditions of the covenant, thousands amongst billions is 1 in a million. Okay, so
that means millions won't. So, but
in that way, but quick question. In that way, it's significant in what way? Because, I mean, if you really think about it, I don't have thousands of family members, but someday I will.
That's right.
So that's pretty significant to me, just from my point of view.
I would view your participation in the covenant and our ability to spend eternity together more than significant.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty significant to me.
Yeah, I mean, I know Kirk's involvement in the family is very significant to both Kirk and to his wife Terry, and it is to a number of us. But personally, selfishly, I would say that just little old me being able to participate in the covenant and being part of Yahweh's family, that's plenty significant to me.
Absolutely.
And be to communicate with my son, who's a member of the covenant, that's overwhelmingly significant to me.
So I mean, yeah, sure, there's billions of people that don't get it, but if you compare, so if you compare the people that got it to the people that didn't, obviously that's an insignificant number. But at the same time, like I said, I don't have thousands of family members right now. Someday I will.
Yeah, it works for me. Yeah, I think it's quite significant. But as a percentage of the overall population, it is 1 in a million. For those 1 in a million, wow. But when I was asking you why, it's so amazing, isn't it, Kirk, that the answer is so obvious?
Yeah, you've got to read it.
Yeah.
You got to hear it, and you got to.
Did you spend all your life trying to determine it? Would you consider yourself a scholar? Do you think that you're among the top 1% smartest people on the planet?
Hardly.
But you got it.
I got it.
Kirk, I wasn't picking on you at the end of the period when I said, you wouldn't count yourself. You figured it out, but you wouldn't count yourself as a scholar, and you haven't spent your life on this. I would throw myself into that. I didn't begin to even study this until I was in my 50s. And I am absolutely not a scholar. And yet, I figured it out. I didn't even find it hard to figure out. I don't think there's any part of this that, we talked yesterday about some of the insights that were gleaned about Yosha's statements in his Olivet Discourse. And you're saying, that's pretty astute. Never heard that before. And yet, I didn't even have the desire to say, please don't compliment me on something like that. It was no big deal because it was obvious it was no big deal. All I did is read the words. All I did is consider what he said. And I don't think any of this is hard. I mean, how hard is it to figure out that the covenant is Yahweh's family when he calls himself Father and covenant is based upon the Hebrew word for home and family? Is there any part of this difficult?
No. There's a factor you have to have, and I think that's true of everyone from all our friends down in Florida way all across to Australia. And you have to have, I believe, an attitude that you want to know.
Yeah,
and I wanted to know no matter where it led. I really did. I mean, it's kind of, what's the truth? And I don't care what the results are. I want to know what it is.
Yeah, and that's the second part of that is the big deal. Are you willing to go where the words lead?
Yeah.
Most people aren't. Most people are patriotic. They don't want to hear that their government is corrupt. Most people are pro-military. They don't want to hear that their military is counterproductive. Most people are religious. They don't want to hear that all of those who believed their religion got no satisfaction, that they will not see those who have departed in their religion in heaven again. They don't want to hear that. So they won't go where the words lead. Even when it's pointed out that there's a 0% possibility that Christianity is true, that it's absolutely and conclusively false, and that it's condemned by God himself. After they find out there's no such thing as a Trinity, as they find out there's no such thing as a church, that man can't kill God, that God could not have died for your sins, that there was no bodily resurrection, that Easter and Christmas are pagan, there's no justification for Sunday, much less worship. And once you prove those things to them, that there's no one named Jesus, that Christ is completely and utterly bogus, and you show them that these things are all false and irrefutably so, they'll still cling to the lie.
Yeah.
Even though the truth is so profoundly superior.
That's absolutely frightening to me that people do.
Yeah, I would say, Kirk, the thing that was the most important aspect of me gradually walking away from being patriotic and being pro-military and being a very active Christian was that I was willing to invest the time because I wanted to know. And all along the way, I was willing to go where the words lead. If they led away from something that I held to be true, then I was willing to go there. One of the last blows for me was renewed covenant. I was convinced there was a renewed covenant, and when I learned that there absolutely, unequivocally is no renewed covenant, the covenant has not yet been renewed. And when it is, it will be based entirely on the wholesale integration of the Torah. And when Yahowah's testimony about it, the one and only time he talks about it, says exactly that. And Yosha said exactly that. It's just, what are you going to do? You're going to cling to the lie? Or are you just going to embrace the truth?
Yeah, you can't marry the truth with a bunch of lies. I don't care what. No, you just can't do it.
And, the bottom line here is that by letting go of the lie, I lost, I want to say I lost nothing, but that's not true. What I lost was something that was holding me back, dragging me down, obscuring my vision. It's like if somebody says, "Would you like to lose the blindfold?" Well, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So by losing something like the renewed covenant, all I did is I tossed off a blindfold. It's like you're going on a backpacking trip and somebody's saying, I slipped a 10-pound bar of lead in your backpack that's doing absolutely no good, in fact doing harm. Would you like me to take it out? Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the difference. You lose nothing of value. You lose something that's holding you back, that's obscuring your vision when you get rid of these lies. But that's not the end of it. That's only part of the equation. What you gain when your vision is corrected, when your eyes are opened, when you jettison the lies, is you're confronted with a truth that is vastly superior in every possible way.
And your perspective is so much better that now you can see the whole picture.
Right. And there's a cause and consequence of a lie, just as there's a cause and consequence of the truth. The cause and consequence of the lie is somebody trying to mislead you for their own benefit. And the consequence is you end up dying. Your soul is squandered. you lose everything. It's false hope.
Right.
The cause and consequence of the truth is somebody wants to share something with you that is enormously valuable, and if you embrace it, you gain everything: eternal life, perfection, adoption into Yahowah's family, enrichment and empowerment. There's a cause and consequence. I mean, the full equation isn't just that all of the crud is gone. It's what you gain as a benefit of all of this. And Kirk, I'm going to tell you, I did not find any of it hard. It's simply, are you willing to invest the time? And are you willing to go where the words lead?
Yeah.
If you are, you'll come to know Yahowah. You'll be part of his family.
You may have lost a few friends along the way because they deal with it.
I have.
And that's tragic because we love our friends, but you have no choice. I'm not going to back up. If you don't want to go with me, then you don't want to go with me. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And, we even loved ones, beyond friends, but family members who just don't want to go there. And there is, when you first come to know aspects of the truth, the first thing you want to do is to share it with family members. And the reality is that most are going to reject it.
They totally shut you down.
Yeah, and there's nothing you can do to change that.
No.
I would say with one exception, and that is if the consequence of you and I being enlightened and knowing the truth is that our very attitude, our nature, our lives are transformed in such a way that, wow, that's neat, that's exciting. That's consistent. That's enlightening. How many times have people spoken to us where they say, what you're saying is exactly what I suspected was true. I just never had the evidence to support it. And I think that you can make a difference just based upon our natural enthusiasm for being included in this marvelous family.
Well, it can be. Enthusiasm is always contagious, so that's absolutely true. And so many people I've found that they stumbled on either the show or the books or the Facebook site that Larry has, or the website that Richard has done, or the marvelous site that has been prepared by Don, and or even our good friend Frank, and they just come to realize, wow, that's what I've been looking for. Yeah. And so, that's family grows. And the larger the family, let's say that we gain 1,000 members. Well, there's only one universe to inherit, only one God to be adopted by. Boy, you would think that would somehow lessen the amount that each of us individually would have, more competition. But it's the opposite of that, isn't it? Yep. You have to remember infinity is a lot of room in infinity.
Yeah, it's hard to divide. And this is not just infinity going from 3 dimensions to 4.
Yes.
But it's also an infinite increase to go from 4 dimensions to 5, from 5 to 6, and from 6 to 7 is infinity multiplied by infinity. Each of those times up the ladder.
Yeah, exponential. It just grows from multiple factors.
Yes. And beyond that, it's not just that what we're inheriting is to be calculated as infinity multiplied by infinity many times over. It is also to be understood as from the perspective of when you and Scott both decided to become part of the covenant, eternity was made richer. I wasn't made poorer. I was made richer because now there's a new personalities, new kind of approaches, a new set of eyes, and a different way of looking at similar things. Someone to share it with, too.
Yeah.
Someone to talk to.
Absolutely.
Right. Someone to party with.
There's nothing negative about growth.
No. Not at all. And Yahowah's making the same statement. The more individuals that elect to participate in the covenant, the better it is for him too. Better if it is for all of us.
Yeah. You know, the 23rd and 24th Psalm, you know, approaches it the same way. You know, that we were talking about earlier. It's if you think about it, Yahowah uses absolutely the same format. He was like the first Shattering Myths program. I mean, he starts out with condemning all this stuff and looking at these people. Now,
though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death.
Yeah. He said, look at this terrible stuff that's going on.
Right.
Yeah,
where do you think the shadow of death is?
Yeah.
He's not walking through Sheol, is he?
No.
No, he's very much alive, being influenced by the institutions of man, being threatened by the likes of politicians and militaries and religious thugs. That's the shadows of death. Yeah, so he begins there. You know, though I walk through the shadows of death, I will feel no evil, for Yahweh is with me. Yeah, we should do a double translation of the 23rd and 24th Psalms, particularly as they emerge. What is the psalm that precedes them? Ever read the 22nd Psalm?
Oh, yeah, that's the one about him, yeah.
You betcha. The sacrificial lamb. I'm a bit mystified with it being so easy to disprove Christianity. I mean, I can walk you through any one of 20 absolute proofs that don't even require you to open a book. Just walk you through the rationale and prove 20 different ways, emphatically, conclusively, that Christianity is a fraud, that it's false hope, that there's nothing good that's going to come out of it, that it is the world's largest deception. And I can state Yahweh's intent in his covenant as he presents it and be irrefutable in terms of it, that presentation. And yet, most people won't listen or reject it out of hand. One thing is going to lead to the extermination of your soul, the other to you being adopted into God's family and inheriting everything that he has to give and being multiplied by infinity times infinity 5 times over. Why is it such a difficult sell? You know, I made a living selling. I think you know that. I made a living selling, and I was really lousy as a salesperson because I didn't have the infectious kind of personality, engaging personality of a salesman. So I changed my modus operandi to I listened to what people wanted, come to understand what they needed, and I simply worked such that I was offering people what they said they wanted and what they needed, and people have a tendency to accept. They buy something when you present it as you give them what they want. Right. Well, Yahweh's giving us exactly what we need.
Should be what we want.
It should be what we want. Why are there so few takers? Yahweh's got a great engaging personality. I mean, he's fun. You know, I'm shy by nature. He's not.
No.
Why is Yahweh's offer of the covenant presented in his own words, enabled by his own deeds, so daggone unpopular?
It's been covered up so much, and it just shows you the power of Satan's influence on things. People just they love the darkness.
Gosh,
they honestly must love the darkness. But let me show you something that's covered up. That reminds me. I want to share this with you because this always bothered me. And this is Matthew 23, 1 through 4. And I was doing some research because that's the one, you know, where it says, you listen to the Pharisees, and that's absurd. Well, you would say, here's there's a 14th century Hebrew Matthew translation, and in English, they have written it this way: the scribes and the Pharisees had seated themselves in the chair of Moshe. Yes, therefore, all that he, speaking of Moshe, here's the difference, He, speaking of Moshe, tells you, do and observe, but do not do accordingly to their, speaking of the Pharisees, deeds, for they say things and do not do them.
And Yahowah says
See the obvious twist there compared to the way the English Bible writes it?
Yeah, wow, what a difference.
Now that would be, that to me, now I can't prove it, but that to me would be what, I bet you that's what he said, because he wouldn't say the other. That would be the equivalent, to say the other, that the way it's written in the English Bible, would be the equivalent of him saying, bow down to the Roman government.
Right, right.
You would not bow down to the favorite.
Wow.
To the favorite.
Yeah, it's brilliant. See, I always looked at it as the fact that you are filtering what he said in Hebrew through Greek, and the Greek was very poorly maintained. The Hebrew was Matidyahu was originally written in Hebrew, and if we had the Hebrew, wouldn't be a translation, but the Hebrew recording of it, boy, would that ever be marvelous. And then it was poorly maintained and edited frequently by the Christian community, so that what we have is hugely distorted. In this particular case, all they have to do is change the pronoun.
Yeah.
All they have to do is change the pronoun. And in many cases in Greek, the pronoun isn't actually there. It's implied through a prefix on the verb.
Yeah.
And so all they have to do is change a letter in the Greek from he to they. And in this case, it's third person. In this case, it would be masculine in both cases, but singular versus plural. I mean, extraordinarily easy copy edit, and it changes everything, doesn't it?
Right.
You know,
this guy
you can also look at it
yesterday. Went back and said, no, that ain't it.
Wow, 14th century copy edit. You know, because the Texas Receptus is 16th and 17th century. So much later document. Yeah, they changed it. We'll be back tomorrow. May God bless you all.